a bit of a laugh, my family dressed me in a dress, and I was held above my father's head, and everyone laughed at me, and I can remember even thinking back then at 3.5 years of age that, hey, I am a girl and I should be wearing a dress. Why are people laughing at me? And that incident actually evolved into a continuous nightmare I had up until I was 33 years of age, when I got courage to come out to the world as the woman I was inside always. That is common amongst trans people. It's a feeling that you get very young in age. But a lot of people are confused between gender and sexuality. Like a young boy or girl normally knows they're a little boy or a girl way before they know if they're attracted to a boy or a girl. So a trans person normally, about around 3 to 5 years of age, they know it, and those feelings never go away like it never did for myself.
You obviously lived the majority of your life so far, on the outside at least, as a male, and you had an extensive sporting background as a teenager and through to adulthood. So you're a tremendous sports person and were even inducted into the Wagga Hall of Fame. Tell us about that.
Yes. I'm a born and bred Wagga person, and Wagga is very famous for producing some outstanding sports people, i.e. in the AFL field, Carey and Kelly and Sterlo and Mortimer and Slater and Taylor in the cricket, and Jeff Lawson, and there's some amazing sports people. But I was inducted as an inaugural inductee back in the early 1990s as Warren, not Kirsti. I was at a very young age a champion swimmer, breaking state records, and become multi-talented in a number of endurance events such as swimming and cross country and rugby league and Australian football. I represented in numerous sports, but I was an international pentathlete as a male and a first grade rugby league player in the Riverina area of Wagga, and I'm just really happy to say that we're having a relaunch of that Hall of Fame it's like 25 years this year in Wagga in July this year, where my name will be changed to my correct name of Kirsti now. So I'm really excited to attend my first Sportsman Hall of Fame dinner as Kirsti.
You were married and had 3 children at the time you decided to come out as a woman publicly. I imagine that must have been very tough. How did you go about telling your family, and what was the general reaction?
Wow, yeah, that was something that took me 33 years of my life to tell anybody else, and the first person I told about who I truly was inside was my former wife. And yes, I had three girls in their early teens, and I was also the only son. I was Warren Jr. and I had 3 sisters. So and I grew up in a pretty rough area of country New South Wales, Wagga, in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. So it took a long time to come out to anybody. And being my wife, being the first person, I wrote her a huge letter around 10, 11 pages, and it took me 9 months to get the courage. Every night I'd wake up and lather the sweat to get the courage to hand her this letter to explain about who I was. So yeah, that was a massive thing, but it came down to, I would have been happy to just gain one day in the future as a woman, to live one day in the life in my true body, and rather than go on another 30 odd years in the wrong body. So although some people may say I was courageous in doing it, I had no choice. It was a life and death situation. It got to that point in my life.
Obviously you lived a lifestyle portraying the cliched masculine style, and how has the Broken Hill community reacted to you since?
Well, I originally transferred to Broken Hill back in the late 90s, early 2000s as the Deputy Superintendent of the local maximum security jail. And at that time I still presented to the world as Warren and as a male, but on the inside I was changing. I was taking hormones, and as you can imagine, it was a shock to not only the Broken Hill community, because we're talking about the outback of New South Wales, a mining town, not Darlinghurst or St Kilda. This is something new, and although it was it is renowned as a town of Priscilla, the Priscilla movie, such as the Priscilla movie where that was about two cross-dressing people and a transgender person fighting for acceptance. I've had to do the same, Jackson. I've had to fight for acceptance. I've had to educate a lot of people out here, and I'm proud to say about the Broken Hill community, they're an amazing bunch of people, and once they get to know you from the inside, they treat you as one of their own, and there's not another place in the world where I'd feel safer or want to be, but hey, it's not been without its battles, it's not been without Kirsti being involved in a few scuffles at the pub with a few local miners over the years, and luckily I came out on top, but that those things don't happen anymore. I'd say 99.9% of Broken Hill community are supportive of people of difference, and myself and my partner Nikki, we both cab drivers here in Broken Hill. We get to drive the drunks around at night and the elderly around of the day, and it's massive support out here, which is a wonderful thing.
So you were playing women's football in 2013 and you copped some nasty vilification on the field. What type of things were said to you?
Yeah, that was back. The original vilification incident in the Broken Hill AFL occurred back in 2013, and this is, first I'd like to make clear that never once have I ever sought for anyone to be punished over these things that happened originally, and that's definitely not what I'm advocating for or complaining about these days. So that's over and done with. It's just the management and the ongoing discrimination against Nikki and I. But the things that were originally said on the field were things about my genitalia, i.e. show us you're on the ladder from allowed to swear. Things like, don't tackle that thing, you're going to get AIDS. Don't tackle number 30, my number, you're going to get the disease. And this was from players and spectators and officials from the other club. And like I said, I never asked for anyone to be punished. I just wanted the matter investigated and education to take place to ensure, because it was a new thing to Broken Hill, a new thing to me, to my opponents, everyone, it was new. And I expected, not the abuse that I received, but I expected some flack on the field, but I definitely expected far more support from the AFL officials, which is pretty much been non-existent the whole way.
Do you notice any physical differences between yourself and the other women that, might give you an advantage or endanger the other players?
Absolutely. There's some players on the field that I would have a massive advantage physically over them. And conversely, there'd be some that have a massive advantage over me. And same as my partner, same with every other player on the football field, the same as in the National AFL. There's a big difference between Buddy Franklin and John Platten in size. Do we segregate people now on age and ability and strength? Some people are quicker, some are better kick, some are better handballers, some are better tacklers. Overall, Kirsti is just a very average player, and the International Olympic Committee formed a committee back in 2003, and then this committee comprised of medical and sporting experts, and they met, and then this committee was called the Stockholm Consensus, and they met to consider the merits of trans people participating in sports. And they determined back in 2003 that post-operative, after 2 years treatment, a male to female athlete will have no physical advantage after 2 years of this denial of hormone treatment. That's been in since 2003, so it's, physically, as I can speak from my personal experience, I'm massively weaker than what I used to be. I hadn't produced hormones in my body for 17 years, male hormones, where my mother, she did, my sisters do, my daughters do, other females produce male hormones, the hormone testosterone naturally, which I do not at all. So, in fact, I'm at the least advantage physically. If you had a person the same age, the same weight, approximate weight, that trained the same as me, they would definitely be stronger than me doing the exact same fitness regime. And it's an insult to the women of Broken Hill AFL and soccer to think they see me as a physical challenge. But they're very talented, tough sportswomen out here. There's some tough old girls and tough young girls, you know, and not one of them has ever made a complaint that I was over rough or over strong, or there's never been anything of that nature at all.
If you have one message to the general public that may be listening to this, what would it be?
Hey, if you're going to abuse a young trans person, stop and think, you know, because 3 out of 4 trans people commit suicide from harassment and discrimination, and you know, if you've got a question to ask, or if you want to abuse someone, get on the footy forum and ask me the question, or abuse me. I'd rather you take it out on me, because, you know, I'm a strong girl and I'm an old girl and I can take it, but just please leave other young trans people alone. They're doing it hard enough in this society with normal issues young people face, other than having gender issues, you know, to deal with as well. So yeah, that'd be my number one message. And don't be afraid of difference. Everyone in this world is different, and I think difference is what makes the world a more beautiful, more interesting place. So embrace difference, educate yourself, but don't just make assumptions. So that's probably the clearest message I'd like to give, Jackson.